for studies that it's smart to have some worry about whether they should be doing, it should be harder to get them through the system because they are dangerous. And so they're just having more regulations and looking closer at whether the science is up to snuff and whether putting them out there and risking that potential, dangerous potential, is kind of worth it. So I think it's a balance you've got to create between the dangers of the drug and the potential health benefits. That's all.
Well, briefly rebuttal. You can't always just take a similar drug and find that it's going to work perfectly the same way. Travis wants me to point out that Marinol, which is THC, alone has been found to be a good treatment for nausea and bellyache, but it doesn't have all the same effects that smoked marijuana has, or brownies, which apparently are good for treating cancer pain, chronic pain, and PTSD.
Or did it?
Or might be, but but there's no fun. But the reason that needs to be moved, the way Schedule 1 works is they've tried things that obviously should not be there according to the law, have not been moved because the law is bad. It allows for this sort of authoritarian control of drugs as opposed to a more scientifically based, more thought out, reasoned process. And so what I then wanted to finish up with last time was this beautiful graph here. Which I don't know if you can see it, but this is the study we were given. These are the 2 8-hour psychotherapy sessions. These ones were with a placebo plus psychotherapy, showing 25% success rate in reducing PTSD symptoms. And then our other one with MDMA aided psychotherapy, 2 sessions, they all administered twice. No more MDMA, just for the 2 psychotherapy sessions, and there was an 83% of the patients were no longer had qualified for being PTSD, and after they followed up after 4 years or 3.8 years, I believe, and they found that it had continued. They still were not suffering from PTSD. Now, and then another thing, there's another study on MDMA where they finally, in 2011, sought to isolate the population of ecstasy users from their peers using many things at the same time. So they looked at ravers using ecstasy at least 17 times versus ravers who the ravers using ecstasy. They tried to eliminate other things. They made sure they weren't heavy drinkers. They weren't using lots of other hard drugs. They weren't using marijuana constantly. And then compared it to a group that was doing raves and also not using those drugs, but not using ecstasy as well. And in this comparison, they found they didn't find any cognitive deficits for the MDMA users.
So I don't think the laws are some major affront to science. Saying that to a room full of scientists is always going to sway them in one direction. In fact, I think that it actually insists on more science, because what the law is trying to do is mitigate risk to you, risk to individuals, risk before we're putting potentially more MDMA out there because it's suddenly being prescribed. We need to understand what's going on mechanistically before we make any drug legal. Research on potential pharmaceuticals should determine and refine the desired mechanisms so that we can create better, more specific drugs that do not have neurotoxic effects and are less likely to be abused. I don't think that that's ridiculous. And often there are large claims made about a new drug, a miracle drug comes out and people get excited about the potentials of it. But usually with further studies, it shows that there's a vast decrease in its effectiveness. And we have to weigh, as a society with laws, the potential harm to the entire population. We also need to weigh the possible long-term damage that a drug that's consumed by an individual can make to them. So I think the affirmative position in this debate is stronger because it considers the safety of citizens first and tempers rash decisions that can be made after a study comes out with such hopeful figures that we all want to believe. But we can't let those skew us, and it should encourage us to perform more science to better understand these the mechanisms before they're given to people with drug issues, or before they can potentially cause drug issues, drug abuse. Thank you.